Usability Testing and Habit Breaking Apps, a presentation by Pizza Canvas. So during this presentation, we're going to go through 4 major sections of our study. Firstly, we're going to take a look at an overview, then the testing environment, meaning all of the things related to the experiments, what results we got, and what conclusions we drew. Overview. So first off, what is a habit? Habits are repeated actions that we do without much thought. And sometimes people want to use apps or software to help them break bad habits. What this does is that it reinforces the negative effect of a bad habit. So we are going to look at how usability works in these applications. So what are our goals? We want to see the efficiency of these apps, and we want to identify what mistakes can happen. So our hypothesis is as follows. First, our null hypothesis, H0. Users' time taken in self-improvement application isn't affected by the complexity of graphical interface and amount of functionalities. And the H1 is users will take more time completing tasks in self-improvement applications if it provides a more complex graphical interface with more functionalities.
For the testing environment, first are variables. We have independent and dependent variables. For the independent variable, it is simply which app will be used by the user. Whereas the dependent variables are the time it takes for them to complete each task, as well as the number of errors that are done while trying to complete the task. Our experimental conditions are the level of interactivity and the number of functionalities each app has. We chose 3 applications which each has a different level of these conditions. We can see here each of the applications in use, or how they look when they are being used. As we can see, the first application here is quite simple. It has only a few images and a few buttons. We can see 2 buttons and the habit. All of these are in the same stage. They all have 1 habit that has been added. And as we can see, the next app has a bit more detail, a bit more information, whereas the last application has a lot of information, a lot of functionalities. And this is the difference between all the apps. What are the tasks we had for our subjects? First, they had to add a habit to the application. This is just opening the application and adding which task, which habit they wanted to overcome. The second task was to add a habit event. This is what we called when you fell and did one of the habits. For example, if you wanted to stop smoking and you had spent a week without smoking, but then you smoked, that's a habit event, and you had to add it to the app. We recorded the time and how many errors it took for them to do this. And the final one was access the timeline. All of these apps had a way to show you your progress in completing, in leaving the bad habit behind. And it had a timeline of how you'd done. One of the last task was accessing this timeline and being able to see this information and the details. We did a pilot test on a subject where we tried these different tasks and these applications, and it was to measure the errors and to revise the instructions. And we did come up with a few things that we needed to revise. First, it was that the errors weren't all equal. Some errors took more time, while other errors would be simple and not really be a problem. For example, if they tried to scroll and it didn't scroll, it didn't really affect their workflow. Whereas if they open a loading screen that took a while, that would be a bigger error. So instead of counting the amount of errors, we put the errors in a scale from 1 to 5. If someone committed a lot of errors and took a long time in those errors, we would give them a higher score. Whereas if they wouldn't commit many errors, we'd give them a lower score near 0 or 1. And on the other, another thing we found is that the second task of adding a habit event was a bit confusing, given this name habit event isn't widespread. So we had to explain what it meant, and that was part of what we added for the future testing.
Okay, now we will talk about the results. First for the results, we did a statistical analysis. For this study, we did an ANOVA one-way research. During this usability experiment, we considered the app to use as an independent variable. Therefore, we have three conditions. One for each application. Considering this condition, we decide to apply one-way ANOVA, as I mentioned, for the statistical analysis. We use the total time taken within each application as the dependent variable in order to resolve our hypothesis. The -n value is all the inputs in the ANOVA table research, and -n is the quantity of the test we have implemented. In the table, we can see the values obtained. These values are the total time taken in each app, the combination of all three tasks in seconds for each user and test for each application. The ANOVA summary shows us we have 2 degrees of freedom in between groups and 9 degrees of freedom in within groups. So we have to go to the ANOVA table and look for the F value of 2,9, and this value is 4.2565. In our summary, the F stat we obtain is 1.6545. So the given F stat is less than F of 2,9. So we accept H0, our null hypothesis, as correct, with a p-value less than 0.05. So we take the hypothesis as correct. Users' time taken in self-improvement application isn't affected by the complexity of graphical interface and amount of functionalities.
So in the end of the study, we can draw certain conclusions. As we mentioned, the null hypothesis was in the end correct. We started out this study with the preconception that more complex UIs would introduce to more time taken for certain tasks. During the design of the study, we chose the different apps with what we perceived were different levels of complexity, and the result and the experience of doing these tests, we could see that the simplicity of the first app, which was the most simple of all, actually caused problems in understanding of the UI. And it provoked them to make many mistakes and to go in circles searching for what it is that they wanted to do. The ANOVA results back up this back up our experience and back up what we could perceive after having done these tests. Thank you.
Thank you.